Have you ever watched football with a group of people and there's that one jackass that blatantly states the obvious?
You know, if you want to beat New England, you got to get to Tom Brady.
And if you want to get wet, you go outside when it's raining. Why are we talking about obvious? Because it has been clearly obvious that Lamar Jackson has been the best quarterback in football from the start, middle, and end of the season. Today, we're going to talk about the top 5 most impressive quarterbacks in football this season. We made this list about halfway through, and we're making it now. Why? Because some of the quarterbacks that were on the list the first time got booted off the list. Other quarterbacks got put into the list, and other quarterbacks in the list got altered at their number and their position. Let's talk about the best quarterbacks and why they are as good as they are and where they're put where they are, right here on the top 5 most impressive quarterbacks of the NFL this season. We are back on the YouTube channel, and today we're going to talk about the top 5 most impressive quarterbacks in football throughout this entire season. Before I do that, I do want to send condolences to the family of David Stern and Don Larson as they both passed away yesterday. As you know, David Stern was a huge factor of putting the NBA on the map and making it what it is today. He did suffer a brain hemorrhage a couple weeks ago, and unfortunately he did pass away yesterday. And Don Larson, as you know, is well before most of our times, but he was known for that significant moment of pitching a perfect game in the World Series, and that iconic moment of jumping into Yogi Berra, the catcher of the New York Yankees at the time, through that moment. Don Larson was 90. I believe David Stern was 77. So I want to give my condolences to both of them. They were huge contributors in their field and their professional sport, and they will sorely be missed. So today I do have the top 5 most impressive quarterbacks in football. I did make this list earlier in the season. I altered it now because there is an honorable mention that I thought was well deserving of this. And if not an honorable mention, somebody that deserves to be on the list in general. I got 5 quarterbacks here, 1 honorable mention. And it was a little bit hard to order these between the 5 and honorable mention spot. Before I do get started, I did not put Jimmy Garoppolo on the list because I didn't feel he deserved it. Here's why. Jimmy Garoppolo had a good season, but I don't think he had a great season. He did have a lot of touchdowns. He did throw a lot of interceptions. And to be honest with you, I think the 49ers got to where they are because of that stellar defense. Jimmy G wasn't terrible, but he was good. I wouldn't say he was a top 5 quarterback. That's just how I view it. Don't even get me started about Dak Prescott and Jameis Winston, because Jameis Winston was sacked nearly 50 times and threw 30 interceptions. And his receivers, Jameis Winston threw the ball up and his receivers made him look good. Dak Prescott is different because Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than Jameis Winston. But the problem with Dak Prescott is that when it's a big game, he folded. He had good games throughout the year. But the reality of it is his team didn't make the playoffs. And on paper, the Dallas Cowboys had one of the best teams they certainly had the best team in the NFC East. And one of the best teams in football the Cowboys do have on paper. And if you're not able to help your team win and lead them to success, you do not deserve to be on this list either. Honorable mention is my quarterback, and that's Ryan Tannehill. Now, the reason I put Ryan Tannehill on this list is because if you look at what he's done in the short amount of time he's been a Tennessee Titan, it's just been absolutely phenomenal. Ryan Tannehill did not start the season. The Titans had started Marcus Mariota, who has been their quarterback at the helm for the last couple of seasons. And Marcus Mariota was massively underwhelming. Offense couldn't get going, nothing. He kept getting sacked, fumbles. He wasn't really throwing interceptions, which has been something he's done a lot in previous seasons. So then the tides turned halfway through week 6, and all of a sudden Ryan Tannehill came. And as the weeks went by, Ryan Tannehill was impressing the Titans and us fans as well. Ryan Tannehill's played 12 games this season, and in those 12 games, he has 22 touchdowns with only 6 interceptions. His QBR is top the NFL with 117.5. He has been sacked 31 times. However, he has just over 2,700 yards and averaging 228 yards per game as a quarterback. Ryan Tannehill has been phenomenal. He has a 7-3 record this season with the Tennessee Titans. And he is a huge factor as to why this team completely turned it around. Even the run game got better. Henry wasn't looking as sharp in the beginning of the season. Our receivers have been great. We've seen some plays from Jonnu Smith. We've seen A.J. Brown. He's been a huge contributor. And we've just seen the whole entire team shift in terms of their offense. I think their defense kind of fell down a little bit. But Ryan Tannehill's been phenomenal, and he is going to be looking for a big contract and a big win, a playoff postseason win against New England this Saturday. Number 5, some people may not like this. Number 5 is Aaron Rodgers. Because when it's all said and done, this was not the best season Aaron Rodgers has ever had, but it was a damn good one. He did lead the Packers to a division title, and they were 13-3, and they will be hosting a playoff game next weekend. He had just over 4,000 yards on the season. He had a solid 26 touchdowns with just 4 interceptions. And for someone like Aaron Rodgers who scrambles a lot, that is very good. He has been sacked 36 times. However, his QBR is very good. It's 95.4. He averages 250 yards per game and 7 yards per play. Aaron Rodgers has been good this season, and we're starting to see how Aaron Rodgers is starting to get those Green Bay Packers going. I don't know if they're as going to what they once were, but when it's all said and done, they were 13-3, and he will be leading them in the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers is my number 5 quarterback. Despite missing a few games, stats are stats, and number 4 is Patrick Mahomes to me. He had 4,000 yards on the season, 26 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions. It was great. He's only been sacked 17 times. His QBR is phenomenal at 105.3. He's averaging a great 287.9 yards per game and even 8.3 yards per play, which is very good, especially for Patrick Mahomes. As you can see, after Patrick Mahomes went down, the Chiefs were a little bit lackluster, and now they're finally starting to get that back again. Now Mahomes is not throwing for 350 yards a game, but I feel like that could be a potential, and I feel like the Chiefs could be due for a big game in the playoffs come next weekend. Mahomes is my number 4 quarterback just on that alone. Hasn't really thrown picks, has thrown a lot of yards. Hasn't been really sacked. He's got a great QBR, averaging good yards per game and good yards per play. Number 3 is Russell Wilson. Now, I originally had Russell Wilson lower, but he bumped back a few spots because there was one quarterback that was so damn impressive that I had to put him at the number 2 spot. Russell Wilson, the Seattle Seahawks are still playing good football, but you've seen a trend recently of them playing less exciting football. When it's all said and done, though, Russell Wilson has been great all year long for the Seattle Seahawks. He has 31 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions. His QBR is bonkers, 106.3, 4,110 yards, which is great. 8 yards per play on average, 256.9 yards per game. However, he was sacked 48 times, and that is very bad. But when it's all said and done, the Seattle Seahawks were great this year. Their run game is going to be a huge question mark going into this playoff game this Sunday against the Eagles in Philadelphia. But Russell Wilson has been great all year for the Seattle Seahawks, and that is why he is my number 3 quarterback. Generally, when a quarterback plays only 11 games, they probably won't make the list because there's so many quarterbacks that had that advantage of playing those extra 5 games. However, Drew Brees has just been on another level this year with the New Orleans Saints, and it's kind of scary because he's only played 11 games. I know he has someone like Michael Thomas to his advantage and Cook as well, but it's just unbelievable what Drew Brees has done. Drew Brees is my number 2 quarterback of the NFL this season, and that is right. He had an unreal 27 touchdowns with only 4 interceptions. He was sacked just 12 times. He passed just under 3,000 yards on the season. His QBR is unbelievable at 116.3. He's averaging 270 yards per game and 7.9 yards per play. Drew Brees is in this conversation of elite quarterbacks because you look at what Drew Brees has done in the time frame that he's done it. I just think it's been unbelievable. Looking at these Drew Brees stats, except for the yards, maybe he would have another 1,000. These are stats that you are expecting from someone that played a healthy 16-game season. You're not expecting these stats from someone that played 11 games. And the same goes, they're less impressive, but even the same thing goes with Patrick Mahomes. I know he played more games this year than Drew Brees, but Drew Brees is just unbelievable. And he's just playing the best football of his career. And the Saints are really pushing all the buttons to potentially win that Super Bowl this year, but that is number 2 for me. Number 1, and this is almost unanimous to all NFL fans and people worldwide. Number 1 to me is Lamar Jackson. It has to be Lamar Jackson. If you look at, last year, what they looked like in that playoff game against the Chargers, it was just terrible. And just to see them come out this season and finish 14-2, I mean, they ripped the Pittsburgh Steelers in a game where half of their players weren't even playing. Lamar Jackson is just unbelievable. He leads the league with 36 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. He's only been sacked 23 times. His QBR is fantastic at 113.3. He's got 7.8 yards per play, which is good as well. And not only are they 14-2, they're 14-2 against tough competition. And that's something to make note of because New England was 8-0, I believe, to start the season, but they didn't really play anybody prior to Buffalo. And I think the thing that's most important with Lamar Jackson is the fact that there are only 5 running backs that are ranked ahead of him in rushing yards. Lamar Jackson could very well be a better version of Michael Vick. He's ranked 6th in the NFL with rushing yards at 1,208. That's unbelievable. And not only that, he's got 7 rushing touchdowns to add to that. And he's averaging, as a quarterback, he's averaging 80 rushing yards per game. So it's just unbelievable just to think of that. Lamar Jackson has just been unbelievable all season. And it could be just very well one of those years where all these other teams are playing great, but just this team can't be stopped. I do see the Ravens in the Super Bowl. Do they win? Depends who they play. But Lamar Jackson is my top quarterback for the NFL this season, and that's my opinion. I hope everybody enjoyed this list. Again, not everybody's going to agree with it, but to a sense, you kind of have to do your best to assemble it. And again, there's a lot of people that can break down different stats, but I try to look at the important ones where team success is a huge and very important stat. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and hopefully this was a good video to walk you into the new year, and best of luck in 2020.